Good morning. Welcome to day 2 of ACC CAM Certification Preparation Program in partnership with the Association of Certified Anti-Money Laundering Specialists, ACAMS. I'll start today with a quick revision of the topics that we have covered yesterday. Then we are going to be moving on with Chapter 1, Money Laundering Risks and Methods. We discussed the definition of money laundering, and we mentioned that as per the Palermo Convention, money laundering is defined as the conversion or transfer of property, knowing at the time of its receipt it is derived from a criminal offense for the purpose of concealing or disguising its illicit origin, or of assisting any person who's involved in the commission of the crime to evade the legal consequences of their actions. So this is what's called the conversion process. Then we have the concealment process, which is the concealment or disguising of the true nature, source, location, disposition, movement, rights with respect to or ownership of property, knowing that it is derived from a criminal offense. Then the third stage is the acquisition or possession or use of property, knowing at the time of its receipt that it was derived from a criminal offense or from participation in a crime. So it's a three-step process: convert, conceal, and acquire. And we mentioned that here we are not talking about cash only, we are talking about assets, properties that can include cash and can include non-cash. So we mentioned that we can launder money without money. You do not need to see cash in each stage of the money laundering, and you may not see cash at all in all the stages. Furthermore, you do not need to pass by the 3 stages of money laundering, which is placement, layering, and integration, to do money laundering. You may not pass by these 3 stages. You can pass by 1 or 2, or you may not pass by any of them. We spoke about the willful blindness, and we said that the concept of willful blindness, it's equivalent to ostrich instruction. We also call it purposeful indifference, willful ignorance, conscious avoidance. So all these are synonymous for the same concept. And the legal definition of this is deliberate avoidance of knowledge of the facts. So you are intentionally avoiding the facts. So you pretend that you don't know, and to evade the knowing element in the Palermo Convention definition. The legal perspective for that is those who exercise willful blindness, they will be treated as knowing. So willful blindness is treated as actual knowledge. And of course, if the person committed an illegal activity and he knows, then the punishment or the persecution will be imprisonment or fine or both. And we gave an example for MoneyGram, and we mentioned that FinCEN, Financial Crime Enforcement Network, have posed $1 million civil penalty against MoneyGram Chief Compliance Officer for exercising willful blindness.
Here, this ostrich institution, why it was called?
Because the ostrich actually, when it sees any risk, it buries its head in the ground. So it pretends that it doesn't see the risk, and it assumes that the risk that it doesn't see doesn't exist.
I think it's not that reason.
Yeah.
The ostrich wants to hear something from the
To hide. I don't want to see. Yeah, I don't want to see.
No,
Yeah.
they want to listen to the movement of.
Yeah. But ironically we say that it buries its head in the mud.
What we see.
That's right. Yeah.
Doing something.
That's right. So sure.
You mentioned that willful blindness is legally, there is legal consequences?
Yes, legal consequences is the legal perspective is equivalent to action, and legal consequences, which is a persecution itself, that it's a jail or fine or both. That's the consequences of exercising willful blindness. The FATF, the Financial Action Task Force, expanded the willful blindness mandate to cover the financing of terrorism. So that will apply to money laundering. Also, it will apply to terrorism financing. Then we mentioned about the different ways of laundering money. And as I mentioned, that we started with how to launder money through banks. And we mentioned that criminals can move through numerous different commercial channels. They can seek to operate in and around the financial system. So they can use the banks, they can use the non-banks or non-financial institutions. In banks, they can use the EFTs or the electronic fund transfers. Why is EFTs an appealing method for launderers? Because it's a fast channel, fast conduit for moving money between countries and accounts. So when you do a SWIFT transfer, it is momental, it's very fast. So funds move from one account to another, from one bank to another, from one country to another, just at a blink of an eye. When you do multiple transfers, so we complicate the matter further from different accounts, banks, and countries, that increases the complexity and makes it more difficult and more challenging to trace the origin of the funds. And that's why they use it heavily at the layering stage. So in the layering stage, they use a series of transfers to make it difficult to trace and to hide the original origin of the funds, which is an outcome of the predicate crime. Remember yesterday? So we said money laundering is always, when you charge somebody with money laundering, you are at least charging him with two crimes: the money laundering crime and the predicate crime. You may not know the predicate crime in all cases, but when you suspect money laundering, you are suspecting that the asset is generated from a predicate crime. You may know it, you may not know it. You may know it when, for example, a customer submits some forged documents. So in this case, you know the predicate crime, which is fraud and money laundering. But when a customer receives an inward, let's say, transfer or a cash deposit, which is outside his financial capacity, beyond his financial capacity, we don't know really what went wrong. We don't know what was a predicate crime, but we are suspecting that there is an illegal activity or there is a crime, possible crime, because the funds received are beyond the financial means or the financial capacity of the customer. So, but if I said that I'm charging or I'm suspecting money laundering act and I'm saying that this person have not done a predicate crime, then I don't know what I'm talking about. Because you can never have money laundering without a predicate crime. You always have to have a predicate crime. That's a very important element. And that's why I said...
In UAE, we have felony misdemeanor.
Yeah.
So this, I think, exceeds this FATF regulation.
That's right. Yeah. That's a very good thing as well we have here. Yeah, that's right. And yesterday, to make it easy for us to remember, I said that it's like a buy one, get one free offer that we see in the shopping malls. In a criminal industry also, we have do one crime, get one crime free, at least. And why I said at least? Because you can get more. And I give examples for doing one crime and getting more than one crime in return as the tax evasion. So you'll be charged here with 3 crimes: tax evasion, fraud, and money laundering. So here you did one crime, and you got 2 crimes extra. And we give example also of Bernard Madoff, who have been sentenced 150 years in jail for doing Ponzi scheme, which is an kind of investment fraud. And he got lots of charges, totaling 250 years in jail. And we mentioned, why do we do this? Because we want to make it difficult for criminals to do crime or to consider crime. We want to reach to the fact that crime doesn't pay. So if you are heavily punished, then you would think twice or thrice before doing a crime. But if you do a crime and you get lots of money in return and the punishment is so little, then that means crime is paying and many people will be thinking about crimes. There was a study that has been done by the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, the ACFE. They have done a survey on all human beings and they classified everybody into 3 categories. They call this a 10-10-80 rule. The 10-10-80 rule says 10% of the people are ethical. 10% of people are unethical. So you have 10% who are very good, perfect, 10% who are hopeless, bad. How about the 80%? You can either be ethical or non-ethical. You cannot be in the middle, right? The 80% are ethical. That's really good. But subject to circumstances. So as far everything is great, I'm ethical. When I'm under pressure, when I have the reason not to be ethical, then I cannot promise. So, and that's the scary part, because those 80% are by default ethical, but they are ready. They are a criminal on hold. They are ready to transform. Okay? So these people, you always need to remind them that doing illegal activity is bad. Crime doesn't pay. You don't need to remind the 10% who are good, because whether you remind them or punish them or not, they are not going to do it. They have their ethics. They will not do anything unethical. How about the 10% who are bad? No matter what you do for them. Now, with all this tough money laundering rules and regulations, does it mean that nobody's laundering money now? Still, there are bad people who are laundering money. No matter what you do, no matter how heavy the punishment is, they will still do it, right? So we are not dealing actually with the 10 or the 10. The 10 who are bad, they are hopeless case. No matter what you do, they're still going to do crimes. The 10% who are good, regardless whether you punish them or you don't punish them, they are ethical. So the main focus here is the 80%, those who are ready to transform. Criminals on hold, right? That's why we target these people, and this is 80% of the society, and that's a huge percent. That's most of the people are falling in that category. That's why we stress on the ethics, the ethical culture, the integrity, strong and strict laws and regulations, proper prosecution, nobody above the law, So all that to target the majority of the people. So the first method, as I said, that has being used for laundering money is the EFTs, which is done through banks. They can be done also through exchange offices. Like you can go here to Al Ansari, to UAE Exchange, and you can do a transfer. Of course, the value could be lesser compared to banks, but they can do structuring. They can do multiple transfers with many people, and they can achieve the large amount that they want to do. And they target exchange houses because the regulations normally in exchange houses is a little bit more relaxed as compared to banks. They can do more damage to exchange houses as compared to banks who may have stronger regulations, stronger controls.
But here I think we have the same regulation for money exchanges and
Yeah.
banks and other kind of
Same regulations, but I would say the controls in the exchange houses itself is a little bit weaker than the banks. As bankers, we have more controls. So there is more focus and more controls that we exercise in doing the transaction. Exchange houses, you know how it is. If they operated large groups and small amounts, nobody asks you about the source of funds. Nobody asks you what's the purpose of the transfer. I experienced that myself. When you go to an exchange and you make a transfer, nobody tells you what's the purpose of the transfer. But when you go to the bank, we need to know 5 things. We need to know who's the sender, who's the beneficiary, who's the beneficiary bank, what's the beneficiary country, and what is the purpose of the transfer. So that has to be stated clearly. So for them, they don't want to do that. So if today I do a smaller amount in exchange houses, nobody will ask me anything. Here's the amount, thank you very much, goodbye. So for them, they feel more comfortable dealing with an exchange house than going to a bank. Bankers are always more strict and more, experienced and having more controls. That's why they do prefer to deal with other financial institutions. Unless they have their own enemy within in the bank. That's something else, where they can use the bank heavily because they do have an insider arm. And that's, again, a study that we have done, and we found that 7 out of 10 of financial crime are related to insiders. So in most of the cases, the STRs that I have raised personally in my career, I used to get insider people. And I used to put scenarios and controls to catch those enemy within. And they didn't know how I do it, but I do have my silent controls, which I don't share it with anybody, to capture corrupted employees. Like, for example, I'll just give you one complementary consultancy, complementary scenario. I use always, for example, when we are a bank, we have different types of customers. We categorize the customers, VIP customer, IP customers. Customers who are in private banking, those who are having an account manager. And there are the vast majority of the customers who don't have an account manager. They come to the branch, they pick up a number, and the number takes them to any relationship officer or to any teller. right? They don't have an account manager. So I used to put a scenario in the AML monitoring system that alert me for any customer who is not having an account manager, a dedicated account manager, who deals with the same teller 3 times on the row. So 1 time, that's fine. Second, it may be a coincidence. Third time, no, there is something. That means he's coming particularly for that teller. He's coming particularly for that employee. And it shouldn't happen, because when you pick up a number, it's a random, allocation. So it can happen twice. I mean, coincidences do happen. But 3 times on the row, no, I need to look. So
Unless he was the only one on his desk at that
yeah, I mean, but normally we do have more than 1 teller. So that's why if that guy is continuously or consistently coming to the same teller, to the same employee, that means they have some business between them. And normally what happens is that the teller doesn't pick up a number and they are on call, for example. They arrange that this guy will come and he picks him up because they have some business to sort together. They will cover them, they will, help them. So that's the enemy within. So I used to catch lots of tellers doing so. And I never shared this with my colleagues. So I always capture whoever is trying to do fraudulent activity. The same thing also when I ask for any report. As much as possible, as much as it is feasible, I normally get the report from different sources. In your bank, you have different systems. You can have the same information from more than 1 source. So I don't let any source know that I am double-checking the information or the data in the report that he's providing me, but I get the same report from different directions, and I cross-check. If I found discrepancies, that means I'm also having some corrupted person. Maybe he's in the IT department, maybe he's here or there. So again, I cross-check the figures because you always can get information from various sources. So I do have certain controls. And as I said, the controls, the strongest controls are the silent controls. You do not need to flag every time, here I am, here I am. No. If the control is working silently and effectively and efficiently, that's the best control. So that's why, for example, when people used to say, oh, well, this head of compliance, he's very relaxed, I used to be very happy when I hear that, because I want you to try. When you try, you will find that you were wrong, because I'll be catching you. So it's not clever to just to say, here you go, there's a control, take care, take care. No, I don't want to say this. I have my silent controls, and you try it. Do something wrong, I'll be catching you. So that's how it goes. We spoke as well about correspondent banking, and we mentioned that in correspondent banking there is huge risk. Of course, correspondent banking is a high risk, and we should exercise enhanced due diligence, or EDD. And in the correspondent bank, we have different models. We could have a single correspondent, we could have a multiple correspondent. So in correspondent bank, for example, if that's a US correspondent bank, let's say Citibank, and then you have the respondent bank, let's say Mashreq Bank, for example, in UAE. Mashreq Bank has different respondent banks and customers. Some of them may be high risk. This is business, this is individual, this is a financial institution, and so on. And for example, that financial institution would have different customers and financial institution as well. So if that financial institution is bad, or this one, that means the US correspondent bank, Citibank, is indirectly dealing with a high risk, or a shell bank, for example, or a bank which is not, or in the blacklist, for example. So that's why a US bank always exercises enhanced due diligence on the respondent banks. They send a questionnaire asking them, are you dealing with shell banks? Are you dealing with, let's say, offshore banks? Or what are the controls that you're having on offshore banks, for example? Are you dealing with blacklisted banks? Do you maintain accounts with blacklisted banks? All this kind of questions, so that they are satisfied that they are not indirectly dealing with a high-risk financial institution. So the risk here, for example, as I said, if you have this customer and this customer is a question mark, then I have a problem here for the US bank.
In this, I think there is a payable through...
PTA will discuss that. PTA, yeah, PTA is a sort of a correspondent banking. I'll discuss that in detail, sure. Single correspondent, so you have here XYZ Corporation. It has an account with Bank S, for example. The Bank S has a correspondent bank, and that corporation needs to pay GHI Corporation that maintains its account in Bank R. So Bank S has a correspondent bank that will take care of crediting GHI Corporation's account with Bank R. Or it can be more complicated, multiple correspondents. So you could have the sender financial institution, the sender's correspondent bank, then the receiver's correspondent bank, then the receiver's financial institution, and the client. So for example, this is supplier, this is a client, and they are routing their payment through a multiple correspondent relation. So this is even more difficult because you are dealing with more than one financial institution, more than one correspondent bank. We spoke about structuring, and we mentioned that structuring is actually flying below the radar, is trying to overcome the reporting threshold, which is worldwide as marked as 10,000 US dollars. So any amount that exceeds 10,000 US dollars, even with 1 cent, that needs to be part of the CTR or the currency transaction reporting. Criminals always love to maintain a low profile. They don't want their names to be here and there. So they don't want their names. They don't feel comfortable having their names going to central banks. So in this case, they would want to fly below the radar so that nobody will look at them. So for example, if I want to deposit $40,000, which is beyond or above the reporting threshold, I will divide this 40,000 as follows: 9, 8, 4, 9, 10. Most important that I don't exceed the $10,000 threshold. And I managed to deposit my 40,000 in different banks, different accounts, and without alerting any regulator. And
Here I think there is microstructuring also one term they use in the.
that's right. That's right. Yeah. So structuring has different forms, and the whole idea is, as I said, you maintain lower level of transactions so that you don't draw attention. That's right. Yeah. We mentioned also yesterday about smurfing, and we mentioned that smurfing is different from structuring. In smurfing, I'm dividing the large amount into smaller amounts regardless of the threshold here. So the smaller amounts in many cases are beyond the threshold, above the threshold. And as I said, why it is above? Because when the Smurf will deposit this money, he will do structuring, but the difference will be his commission. Why? Because he's processing, he's using, he's moving as per the FATF money laundering definition. So they will not do that for free. Again, we mentioned about the term nesting, and then we said that there is a US correspondent bank, has a foreign respondent bank or a foreign financial institution. That foreign financial institution is having an issue which is dealing with shell banks. And that puts the US correspondent in an indirect relation or in a nesting correspondent relation with the shell bank. So that means here the US bank is dealing with a shell bank, and that's against, or that's violating their the Bank Secrecy Act and their US laws. So that's why in that situation, that nested situation, the shell bank is in an indirect relation with the US bank. And as I said, the idea of the indirect relationship is having the US bank and having the non-US respondent bank, and you have multiple respondent clients. So the US bank should feel comfortable with these respondent clients. That means they need to make sure that the respondent bank is exercising a proper KYC on their respondent clients. Private banking, and we said that there are 6 reasons for private banking to be high risk. The first reason is conflict of interest. So we said that we are, as private bankers, we are acting as client advocates, and that itself poses a conflict between being the financial advisor of the customer, and at the same time, you must report this customer if that customer is laundering money. The second reason is you are dealing with powerful clients, whether they are SEPs or PEPs, whether they are commercially exposed persons or they are politically exposed persons. Both of them are very powerful clients, and again, dealing with powerful clients is not as easy as dealing with a normal client. Culture of secrecy and discretion. Of course, the bank secrecy is high, and it's even higher when we talk about private banking. So there is an increased level of secrecy here. Secrecy jurisdictions, the funds or the wealth of the private banking customers are normally invested in offshore and tax haven jurisdictions, which has even an extended secrecy laws, and at the same time they have relaxed AML laws and regulations.
In case of suppose a correspondent banking risk relationship is there, and respondent bank through the remittance has been happened between the correspondent bank and the respondent bank. And when they do the due diligence with the correspondent bank, asking why the remittance has been done and what is the reason. If they say this secrecy, because of secrecy we are unable to provide. So what controls or what actions can be taken?
The receiving financial institution has the right not to accept the transfer if they don't have the full information. So you cannot say that, sorry, it's a secrecy, I'm not going to be providing you with the information. But the secrecy here mainly is on the accounts itself, the balances, who owns it. You could have a numbered and symbolic accounts. But in the transfers, I don't think now the transfers can be done anonymously through the banking system, unless they use Hawala. That's something else. But through the banking system, you have the 5 main elements of the transfer, and that has to be disclosed. Of course, there are some banks who are not having strong controls or strong AML laws and regulations, depending on which country you are dealing with. Like, for example, if you are dealing with banks in Somalia, for example, Iran, they may not care about controls. But when you are dealing with banks that are properly regulated, they will not accept inward transfers, and they will not issue also transfers without having all the information ready.
No, they will say that we have the information, but because of the secrecy laws and regulations,
Yeah.
we are not able to provide.
No, you have the right to ask.
This we actually
Yeah.
receive,
Yeah.
many unusual transactions.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, in this case, as I said, you have two options. Whether as a receiving bank, I could report this because I don't have enough information. So I report to the prosecutors to investigate and see if there is a possible money laundering. Or I have the right even to reject this transfer completely.
Also look into their correspondent relationship.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And which bank are you dealing with? It's a reputable bank, or it is a bank with a question mark. So again, the KYC or KYB here is very essential. So as I said, culture of lax. Let's not use lax. Let's use relaxed so that they will not feel bad. Relaxed AML laws and regulations, which makes, of course, criminals happy to deal with such environment. Corrupted PEPs, corrupted politically exposed persons. Again, that means a person is assuming or was assuming a political position, and he has relation to corruption. So that means there is a big question mark on the source of funds that it is related to corruption. So that means corruption, of course, is a predicate crime for money laundering. So that means they are laundering money. The politically exposed person, we have two types. We have the foreign PEP and we have the domestic PEP. And we mentioned that the foreign PEP is somebody who is or was assuming a political position outside the country in a different country or jurisdiction. The domestic PEP is the one who's assuming that same position but inside my country. And we give examples of corrupted PEPs who have caused their financial institutions various damage, whether the whole financial institution have collapsed, like in case of Lehman Brothers, or a financial institution who had multiple fines, like in Riggs Bank case, that they got 2 fines in 6 months' time, totaling to $66 million US. And of course, we have Texas Commerce Bank, Terra Bank. All these have financial institutions have suffered tremendously due to corrupted PEPs. Lending is another way of laundering money. Again, when we talk about lending, we have a misconception that how can a person launder money through a loan? People who are seeking finance, who want loans, they cannot be money launderers. They don't have money, because the concept that a person is laundering money is the one with a very large amount of cash and he wants to deposit. So that's why, unfortunately, based on my experience as a consultant, as a trainer in many banks, they don't see how lending can be used for money laundering. But it's very simple. It is a very simple thing, because criminal, as I said, they always look for open doors and open windows to enter to your financial institution. So in this case, instead of coming to you directly, so let's say what is the basic concept of money laundering. I want to give you 1 million, which is coming from drugs. It's dirty. I'll give you the 1 million, give me 600,000 legitimate. That's a deal, right? That's a basic deal. But I will not do it that way. Let's do it the other way around. I want a loan for 600,000, and I'll give you a collateral of 1 million. You got the point? So instead of coming you straight, no, I'm just going to twist the thing. So your perception will move to credit. When I ask you for a loan, the main focus of the bank completely diverts. How will I get my money back? Will this guy be able to pay? What's my collateral? Is this collateral going to cover the principal plus the interest? Look at the focus. Completely changed. There's no focus on money laundering anymore. And that's the benefit that the criminal wants to achieve. Once I make you forget about money laundering and you start focusing somewhere else, that means I can easily pass. So there's various ways of laundering money through lending. I can ask for a loan, collateralize this loan by a deposit that I have in an offshore bank or a shell bank, or I call it Mickey Mouse Bank in one of these countries where there's no regulations. So in this case, you have two options, whether I can block this deposit, and you as a bank here, lender, you will have the right to liquidate that, or the bank will say, well, why don't I get the money and have it under my own hands? So why don't you transfer this money to me here, and that will be used as a collateral for your loan. But the bank will not think that that place where the money has been deposited doesn't have AML laws and regulations. And there is a big question mark on that jurisdiction. It's a high-risk jurisdiction. But they will always think that, well, this money is coming to the bank GL as a collateral. So it's not going to the customer. Same like when you go and pay the credit card. Banks say, well, how can credit cards be used for money laundering? This money is coming to my GL. Yes, but the guy is using it for point of sale. He's withdrawing. He's having access to funds on the other side. So you have to look at the whole picture. Don't look at one side and say, well, there cannot be money laundering here. No, you need to look at the whole picture, and you need to see how criminals are smart enough to deceive you as a financial institution. So we need to think outside the box. We need to see the whole picture, right? So in the lending, I can secure the lending, the loan, with a collateral located in a high-risk jurisdiction with, I would say, a Mickey Mouse bank, the bank that doesn't have laws and regulations. Or I will deposit this as cash. Nobody will tell me where is the source of funds because that's a collateral for the loan. Some red flags is when the loan doesn't lack or doesn't have an economic sense, lacks normal banking justification. Like you get customers who have, let's say, 10 million in cash in current account. It's not even a deposit or a savings where they get interest. They have 10 million in a current account. And they go and apply for a loan for, let's say, 2 million. So if you have 10 million free money, why do you want to take a loan for 2 million and you pay interest on that? Unless there is a valid reason. There could be valid reason in this situation, by the way. As an accountant, as a CPA, I had this situation, and this 10 million were left there because the company is preparing to do a dividend distribution. So there's a justification. So I need this for my working capital, but this 10 million parked there is mainly for the dividend distribution at the end of the year. Okay, that means there is a valid economic sense. But when this money is parked there without any reason or without any scheduled use of it, and I'm coming to apply for a loan where it doesn't have any economic sense or banking sense, then in this case, it's a red flag. So we need to look at the situation as well. You cannot generalize. Loans for offshore entities or secured by offshore banks. So who's securing my loan? It's an offshore bank, or loans for an offshore entity somewhere where, again, the laws and regulations of the AML are relaxed. Sudden payoff of the loan. Why this is very serious? That's very serious because the criminals, they are like financial institutions. Same department, same everything. So what do? They have an HR department. That HR department looks for hiring candidates, hiring small criminals, new criminals. So as you are in a bank, you have a job description. You have a list of skills and competencies you look for your prospect employee. As a criminal organization, I do have the same. I don't target anybody, but I target people with financial difficulties. A person who has bounced checks. He's going behind bars. So I'll give you a proposition. You will still go behind bars, but you'll come out rich. So what will I do? I'll settle your debts. I'll give you a good amount of money. I'll take care of your family during being behind bars. So just spend some time behind bars and come out. As compared to you are in debts, you will go behind bars. God knows how long you will stay there. When you come out, you still are having problems. You are not rich. That person will start making his calculations. So when a person has a loan and he comes and makes a sudden payoff of this loan, it could be because the criminals have given him access to funds. Okay, so we'll pay off your debts In return, you have to return this favor. So we need to use your account. You need to help us smurfing, structuring. You need to do something for us. What's even more serious or more risky than this, ACAMS unfortunately didn't point that out, it's a sudden payoff of problem loans. That's even worse. Sudden payoff of the loan, that means I take a loan, I'm paying my monthly premium. The loan is, let's say, it's a mortgage for 25 years, and I said, oh, I want to settle the whole mortgage. We need to look, where did he get the funds from? But there is no problem on this loan. The guy has not been delinquent. He has not been not paying. But he is going to pay all the installments for the remaining 25 years, let's say. That's high risk. But what if the guy has been unable to pay for the last 3 or 4 or 5 months? And he's not coming to pay whatever is delinquent. He's coming to settle for 25 years. That's a higher question mark. That's a higher risk. Why? Because from one side, he was not able to pay his monthly installment, and from the other side, he's settling the full amount. So where did he get access to funds? You got the point? So that's even more risky. So sudden payoff of problem loans, that's even more red flag.
From the bank side, from the financial institution side, suppose a loan is not paid for 1 year or a certain period of time as per that. I think the loans it will be transferred to a
Recovery, and then they do a settlement, and yeah, that's right.
So is there the payment controls will be the same controls there where the
Unfortunately, it's not, because the bank is mainly, as I said, the direction here is I want to get my money back at any means. You think the guy will bring the money, the bank will ask him where is the source of funds? Yeah. Give me my money, my friend, I need my money back. So that's why, as I said, we should have, I'm not saying not collect our money, we should collect our money, that's number one, but we should also not forget about AML. Where did this guy get the money from?
And many banks, I think these recovery teams, especially in the big countries,
Yep.
they will outsource this.
That's right, yeah. So those people, they get a percentage.
Yes.
So I want to get the money, even if it's written off. I just want to get the money because I'm getting my percentage. If the guy even told me, I'm going to sell drugs now, get money, he will tell him, most welcome. Do whatever it takes, just get me my money, I want my commission. It's as simple as this. Same like within the same bank, the sales and the credit. Those salespeople, they want to sell, even to a guy who will tell them that, well, I'm defaulted in 3 other banks. Most welcome, well, let's try. Right? Because if I manage doing it, I'll get my commission. That's my whole purpose. He will not think about AML. And that's the awareness that we need to raise. We want to make money, but we don't want to have a criminal money in our system. If that perception or that ethical thing is there, our banking system will be more safe. But when we work independently, everybody is focusing on his own department, then we stopped working as a team. I always see the bank as a ship. If we sail together as a team, the ship will go to the destination. If everybody started to do whatever he wishes, like a guy will dig a hole in his place, all of us will die. A guy will sail the opposite direction, or he'll stop sailing, then the ship will divert. It will not go straight. You got the point? So we have to work as a team. If you stopped working as a team, our financial institution will not succeed.
And in this case, the loan which is granted based on the collateral of the suspected money.
That's right.
Now, when it is sure that some sanction has happened or it is finalized that there is a suspicion and money laundering crime is found, now as per the money laundering definition, the participation will apply here.
Of course,
So
of course.
The bank can settle the loan and remaining amount can be asset recovery team will go or whole amount will go for the
The whole amount collected may go, and you may end up with a fine or a bigger problem, sanction, because in this case you have not done your due diligence. As a regulator, do you think OFAC will care about you are collecting your money or not? No, I'm caring about where this money being, do you have your due diligence? Did you do your KYC? What controls do you have? 75% of the fines, remember these 2 pages I gave you here about the different lists of fines, 75% of these fines are due to one reason only: lack of control. By the way, OFAC doesn't fine you because of mistakes. You could do a mistake and you may not get fined. And you may not do a mistake and you will get fined out of experience. I was just telling you that I had an investigation from OFAC in my bank. And we had a problem. We have done a mistake, because mistakes will happen whether you like it or not. But when they came and investigated, they were not looking for anything except controls. Does this bank have controls? Were they able to prevent it, or it was beyond? If it was beyond, because criminals are always one step ahead, and you have all the controls required, then you have a chance. But if you don't have the controls, then there is an issue. And I will share with you this story. It was one of the biggest stories that happened in my career. I spent 1 week sleepless because I was under investigation. In terrorism financing, even. It's not even in money laundering. And that happened. So as I said, things do happen. That's why I'm still an outsourced compliance officer, and I don't sleep at night. I always think, what could have gone wrong, because at any point of time, any bank I'm training, if they ask me, is there money laundering happening in my bank now, I will tell them yes, 100%. But is there terrorism financing happening in my bank now? Not necessarily. Maybe, maybe not. But money laundering, yes, definitely. As far as you have one transaction, you have money laundering. You cannot say no. So if the only way where you don't have money laundering is to shut down. 0 transaction, 0 money laundering. Agree. But once you have one transaction, even one, even if you tell me I'm going to look at it 100%, yeah, your opinion could be wrong. You may not discover it. So once you start to transact, there is a possibility of money laundering. That's how it is. Yeah, that's why I'm saying we cannot stop it. That's why we cannot say that you cannot give a statement that I have 0 money laundering in my country or in my bank. Nobody can say this at all. You can say it only in one condition: if I'm not transacting. Yes. That's where I can, yes, issue that and stamp it and sign it for you. A bank with 0 transactions. Why is not? Yeah, but hypothetically, I'm saying if the bank shut down, then they don't have money laundering because they have 0 transactions. But once they start having transactions, you cannot say that, no, it's impossible to have money, or I have 0 money laundering. You cannot give such a statement. Right? So that's about lending. Then we talk about NBFI, and that's an important acronym. So now, do you recall with me what the acronyms we spoke about now? Huh? Of course, we have AML, anti-money laundering, ML, money laundering. Okay? Then we have EFT, electronic fund transfer, right? PB, private banking. PEP, politically exposed persons. CEP, commercially exposed persons. CPEP, corrupted politically exposed person. Okay? Then we have DNFBB, or designated non-financial businesses and professions. No, that's not lawyers and accountants. I mean, that's gatekeepers. That's something else. Yeah, they come under the NFB because they are non-financial, but they have a separate, a subcategory, gatekeeper. That we spoke about it. Then we have MSB, money service businesses. Then we have here NBFIs. That stands for non-bank financial institution. Of course, we have FIs as well, financial institutions, FIs. FIUs, Financial Intelligence Unit. Don't worry, this whiteboard will be full of acronyms. Americans, they love acronyms. Okay, so we will fill it, don't worry. Okay, so now a new term is NBFIs, which is non-bank financial institutions. What comes under this category? We have credit and debit cards. We have third-party payment processors, another acronym. TTBs. So when you see this in the exam, please don't ask whether it's pills or syrup. You know, this is not medicine, okay? These are very important terms. And MSBs are already mentioned, okay? So you have MSBs, money service businesses, money transfer services, check cashers, money orders, prepaid access, insurance companies, securities, brokers, dealers. Okay? Let's take each one and let's start to see how criminals can use that for laundering money. Credit and debit cards. Launderers, and this comes heavily in the exam, so you need to put very important. I have lots of questions myself in the exam about credit and debit cards. Lots of questions, trust me. Launderers use the illicit funds that are already in the banking system to pay his credit card bill for goods purchased, and that's an example of integration. At the end of the section, I will give you a question about this, and you will answer it wrong. Mark me on this, okay? Just this one, okay? So just mark me on that. Debit cards can be used to transfer money anonymously, leaving little trail or record of transactions. So these are the two things that I want to highlight here about the credit and debit cards. No, that's not prepaid. That's a credit to debit cards. So it's not a prepaid card. No, no. A prepaid card, we'll talk about it later. Yeah. Okay? Prepaid access. Yeah. So we're talking about a credit and debit card. Credit card is you are getting a line of credit, line of finance. Debit card is that it's linked to an account. Yeah, so you are debiting your own account. Okay? TTBs, third-party payment processors, bank customers that provide payment processing services to merchants and other business entities. Use their commercial bank accounts to conduct payment processing for their merchant clients, usually not subject to any AML CFT requirements. And that's the risk here, that these people are outside the umbrella of the regulators. Same as, for example, if you look at the telecoms. In many countries, telecom companies are not regulated, although they are offering financial services, mobile payment, payment gateways, and so on. So you are offering financial service without being regulated. Service a variety of domestic and international merchants. So TPPs are one of the very risky areas, and it's actually sometimes in many countries it is outside of the radar, outside of the regulations. Yes. Mm-hmm. No, here there is, you are offering a payment processing service. Like for example, here we can talk about Network International, for example. They're offering a payment gateway. You can use a payment gateway to pay your bills, to pay, to receive, send money, and so on.
Like
Hmm? No, not Swift. It's like, as I give you an example, Network International here, for example. It is a lot the same thing. Yeah, it is a lot. They do payment gateways. So if that payment gateway provider is not regulated, or they have relaxed AML laws, then there is a problem, because they are processing payments. They are moving funds from one place to another.
Suppose if you want to pay for the bill, electricity bill, when
Yeah.
you see Etisalat will come.
That's right. That's right.
So these are all TPPs.
That's right. So that third-party payment processors, they do maintain their accounts with banks. Otherwise, how they will do the service? So as a bank customer, like for example, NI or Network International will come to the bank and maintain an account. So Network International is a subsidiary of Emirates NBD. So it is maintaining its account with Emirates National Bank of Dubai. But Network International is a separate TPPs, payment processor, payment provider. MSB or money service business, dealer in foreign exchange. They deal in foreign exchange. So you give them dollars, they give you dirhams, they give you euros, and so on. And that, again, is a very high risk area, because you could, out of experience, many MSBs, they do hawala, backdoor, without, of course, disclosing that to the regulator. They can help you launder your money if you know somebody there in the exchange house. They do it. Yeah, I mean, I personally know how, without mentioning names, that they have back doors, and you can come with cash in car. They take the cash from the car, they exchange it for you, they bring it out for you, and they do the documentation inside. That's a very risky thing to happen. So this is very familiar in the market, and that puts a great risk of laundering money. So if you have now cash and you want to launder it, you go to those people, you offer them a generous percentage, sometimes 20%, 30%, and you do the paperwork for me. So I'll give you the dollars, you give me dirhams, for example. Okay, that's a big problem. So
Actually, in exams, I think they are going to ask what are the indicators of this? What
Of course.
Are the indicators of the,
yeah, red flags.
Yeah, red flag.
That's right.
So do we have any, now this, suppose if you see here money service businesses, this explains what actually is money service.
That's right. Yeah.
But do we have anything like red flags for this money
Yeah, red flags, I can give you lots of red flags. So as I said, helping launderers launder their money. So as I said, if you are connected to that MSB, you could launder money by exchanging the currencies from one form to another. You could even provide currencies, like I'll give local examples here from what's happening here in UAE. Lots of people, they get the dollars that are marked. So this is the United Nations issued dollars. And they are issued, for example, let's say exclusively for Iran or for Africa or for Iraq and so on. They have mark. They have mark. The UN, it is shown. Or sometimes they have a serial. That serial is from the US Treasury, that serial, from that serial to that serial, it's for a certain purpose. Normally, if you transport this currency outside the jurisdiction where it is issued for, you cannot use it. So it is useless. It's just a piece of paper. Although it's a genuine currency. So if you have the counting machine and you put it, it will show as a genuine currency. But it is marked. You cannot use it in UAE. And that's, as per my experience, is floating here in UAE. So many people go to banks. Sometimes they try to play around. They act smart. They put it in the ATM machine. The ATM machine will accept it. But the bank will call the customer and tell them, well, these notes, you have to take it back. If they insisted, then they call the police for them because this currency is marked. Then you have to raise a question mark. How did they get access to it? But if they took it quietly, nothing will happen. And I don't think they report that to you as an FIU. That's a flaw because that person needs to be stopped. Where did you get this money? We need to understand, first of all, if he's a victim, he got it by mistake because maybe he went and he exchanged it currency, he gave dirham and he got dollars. But if he got it intentionally and he knows what he's talking about, then that's a problem. You are dealing with a guy who's corrupt. There was some operation here done by the police where there was one undercover CID guy and he went there and they showed him how they removed the mark. They used to grind some medicine pills and they wipe the card with the medicine pill, like with this powder, and the powder removes the mark. So the CID guy was there as if he's the one who was going to buy it, and he showed him how he will do it. So he made him a sample, and he said, now I'll give you this, and then you need to do this operation. So it will become a normal currency, and you can circulate it in UAE market. Of course, once he got that and he has the evidence, he called up his colleagues, and they raided the place, and they arrested the people. That's in the newspaper. So these things are happening at homes, villas, offices, away from. And these people, they insist that there's no cameras in the entrances and so on. I have been, knowing lots of things like this happening as a consultant, as an investigator. So lots of things are happening in terms of the currency exchange. There are dollars, for example, issued for Iran. There are dollars issued for Iraq. There are dollars issued for Africa.
Okay,
so used in that place only.
inside.
That's right. That's right. So.
Okay, it goes to Iran. Iran, how they will use it after that?
They use it within Iran. They cannot use it outside. So you use it only within the country. It's for a certain purpose. Like some of them are United Nations aid for Africa and so on. So you cannot. We can.
They will use it to buy something, correct?
But for that purpose. So it has to be used only for that purpose. But what people do, they
So they will buy it from outside Iran.
that's right.
So it will go outside.
Yeah, they do wire transfer, and yeah, they do wire transfer to buy whatever they want to buy. But that currency itself should not leave the country. Should not leave the country. Should be used inside the country.
Many people, they don't know.
They get it out and they use it for illegal purposes. Like, as I said, I can take it at a discount because I know that it's not, like, for example, here in UAE, it doesn't have value. Nobody will take it from you. So if I found it here in UAE, I take it at a discount. If I have my means to ship it back to its place, the value will double because I can sell it there at its full value. So those who are powerful here, who can get cash out, right? And there are lots of people who are powerful here who can get cash out. I will take it here at 40% of its price. I ship it there, I get 100% of its price. You got the point? So many of these currencies, you will find it in Oman, in Dubai, here, there, and these currencies, nobody knows how it was transplanted. And you're talking about billions sometimes. Talking about like a guy has $1 billion. So these things are typical money laundering because this is stolen funds. This is funds which is used outside the purpose of being issued for.
You have any slides for those indicators for each, so that it will be easy for the during.
I can provide you with that. As I told you, you have like more than 10,000 scenarios, so I can provide you lots of red flags for credit and debit card. I'll give you some examples. Now, for example, I'll use my credit card.
For each.
Yeah.
Each.
I can give you examples. I can send you that, not an issue. But I'll also want to discuss, because the most important is to discuss than just giving that in writing. So what I can do is that I can use my credit card to buy high value goods, paintings. I go to auctions, I buy high value goods, and then I settle with dirty money. That high value goods, I sell it, I get a check. You got the point how I did it? So the bank will never ask me when I'm paying my credit card bill. I will even pay that in the ATM machine. And if I have a high limit, I could be paying 100 to 100,000 easily in an ATM machine without any question. It's a credit card payment. I may not even route it to my account. I'll just pay directly to the credit card.
So this is placement or?
That if that cash is outside, that's placement here in this case. But if I'm transferring from my account to pay the credit card, that's an integration. So it depends how. Yeah. That's why. That's why here we mentioned in the previous slide. Here, example of integration. If I change this and I said it's an example of layering or placement, that would be wrong. Just one word. Here, for example, instead of debit card, if I said credit card, it's wrong. So each and every word counts. That's why, as I told you, you need to be very vigilant. So other things is I can do a front loading and back withdrawal. So instead of going to the bank, making a normal transfer, I'll give the card to somebody, criminal, in Afghanistan. Use the card, point of sale, POS, or ATM. I will load it here. So I'm loading here, he's withdrawing there. That's it. Why do I need to go to a bank? And he will tell me who is the beneficiary, who is the beneficiary bank, beneficiary country, all these kind of things I'm evading. Right? So front loading, back withdrawal. Yeah?
Things like GoCash.
No, even the credit card itself, you can use, and somebody is loading. So somebody is loading here, and somebody is withdrawing the other part of the world.
What if you are paying through the internet or anything from
Yeah. And you can use it for internet casinos. You can use it for internet auctions. Sky is the limit. Yeah. Check cashers. These are in the US. Every function in the bank, they have a certain company exclusively doing that. So for example, you will find a company that are check cashers. So you give them checks, they give you cash. You give them cash, they issue you a check, a manager check or cashier. Yeah. So that's what they do. They will find another company doing prepaid cards. So you give them funds, they give you a loaded card. You give them loaded card, they give you cash. So buyer and seller of traveler checks, which is now almost not existent. So yeah, there is no now traveler checks, but before there used to be like, companies just doing traveler checks. Like for example, American Express, they used to have, buy and sell American Express traveler checks. Thomas Cook and all these companies, they used to be, yeah, exactly. So there are companies who are doing check cashers. So they give them a check, they give you cash, you give them cash, they give you a check. Again, the controls are weaker than banks. So instead of going and depositing the money in the bank, issuing a check, no, I go to this company, give them cash, they give me a check, I go and put the check in the bank, no questions asked. Issuers of traveler checks, money orders, same. Money remitters, again, you go to Ansari, make a remitting, EFT, as I said, with lesser controls as compared to banks. Yeah, in countries, for example, like Egypt, yes, you can use the post office to save and to do some financial transactions.
I think in US, the postal service also.
It's part of the MSP. Yes, they are financial institutions. That's right. Provider and seller of prepaid access, and that's a new threat now. This is very important because that's being heavily used. If you remember, I'll tell a story now. If you remember the Paris terrorist attack, the Paris terrorist attack was 100% funded by prepaid cards. Full financing using prepaid cards. The criminals, they entered France with loaded prepaid cards, and they used the funds in the card, and they funded the operation. They did the terrorist attack. So prepaid cards.
There's
Yeah, yeah, because that's serious. Exactly. Yeah, because of that Paris attack that has happened recently. And in the US now, if you go to the airport, in the declaration form, they don't only ask you only about cash, but they ask you about also your credit cards, debit cards, valuables, if you have paintings, because I could have in my luggage, let's say, a Picasso painting. That Picasso painting, let's say, is for 10 million. So you cannot say, well, I have only $1,000 in my pocket. You have 10 million worth of painting where you can easily sell it, and or diamonds and so on, jewelries. So now you need to disclose about everything. Of course, they do a risk profiling, and the high-risk countries go to row 8. Then you go to row 8. Where is your wallet? Empty your wallet. They will take each and every card. They have terminals to check what is the limit, what is the available balance, and so on. They don't only check the limit, because you could have a low limit, and I can overpay. Like, for example, let's say today I went to Mashreq Bank. They gave me a limit of 200,000. I loaded the card. I paid in the card 300,000. So now my available balance is 300,000, although my limit is 200,000 only. So I can put excess if I need to spend more. Again, it can be justified. Like, for example, if somebody, let's say the bank didn't give them except, let's say, 20,000 dirhams, but I need 50. The bank will not increase my limit. So what do I do? With my 20,000 limit, I'll go to the ATM machine. I will deposit 30 extra. So my available balance would be 50, which I need. That's,
No, if you are not
yeah,
allowed to take more than 10,000.
exactly. Then you do that. Exactly. But some people are doing that for wicked or bad reasons, that they want to have maximum amount of money, and they can withdraw it somewhere else in the world. Yeah. So the provider of the prepaid access is, again, very high risk, and the prepaid cards, they are very, very risky, because you can load the card, buy the card, load the card, and use the funds in the card very easy. I don't think this is very popular here in UAE. You have only the, the stores card, the Carrefour card and this, which is, of course, having very low limits. But when you do have that card backed by a financial institution, then that it can absorb, like you can have in one. Prepaid cards, yes.
They are. I mean, as a matter of fact, a lot of people who come here with a bunch of cash and not really, carrying a sort of a credit or a debit card,
Right.
do happen to purchase those prepaid cards from bank stores.
But are they sold here in UAE? Yeah. Okay. Okay, but is there any limits for that?
Of course, there's a
Limit, yeah. Yeah. But what is the limit? Any idea?
I know, go
I remember one of the cases, I was actually in conversation with Majid Al Futtaim, one of the representatives Majid Al Futtaim, and they had these prepaid cards which they had started.
Yeah.
So, we in fact had an inquiry with them about what is the control that they have in place
Right.
in terms of who's the beneficiary.
That's right. Yeah.
What is the source of
Funds.
funds and all
Yeah.
that people are purchasing these cards with, and what exactly is the utilization like.
Right.
So, they got back to us with a sort of a, control chart that they had in place. And, obviously there were some controls that were lacking.
Of course.
Considering it's not a mainstream banking
Yeah.
product, and it's not a very popular one at that, we weren't really in a position to kind of take any sort of an action. But of course, having said that,
It's a gateway.
yeah,
It's a gate.
sort of a gateway.
That's right. In the US, this is very advanced, because you could have cards with very high limits, and sometimes even unlimited. So you could load any amount, whatever amount you can load, you can use. And mainly who's doing that, one of the main banks is American Express. So we have cards which, yeah.
In fact, for the beginners, who don't have a credit history as such, they had a division called the Orchard Bank and the Household Bank. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
They actually offered prepaid cards to people who did not have any credit history at all, or had a ruined credit history, or
Right.
people to kind of build onto their credit ratings.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about US. He's talking
Yeah.
about
US, yeah.
He's talking about the popularity aspect of the prepaid card.
Yeah, yeah.
So these cards were actually issued to those people to kind of, fix their credit rating, and they actually had no sort of credit limits as such.
As such, that's right, yeah.
You could as much as you want.
You can load the card with, yeah.
You want to load it up for, you could get the card for the same.
Exactly. That's the risk, because with unlimited, you could have like 2 cards, and these cards have millions. and you could cross border. So that can be used even for like smuggling. So you are moving money from one financial system to another, and this amounts could be very high. And you could use this, of course, for laundering money, or you could use it for tourism financing even. Okay? So prepaid cards is actually the current highest threat as well. Prepaid access. We have two types of prepaid access. You have the open loop and you have the closed loop. The open loop is purchased at any merchant that accepts cards issued on the payment network associated with the card. So that's called an open loop. The closed loop is limited to buying goods or services from the merchant issuing this card. So, for example, if you buy a Carrefour card or gift card, you can use it only in Carrefour. In the US, of course, you have from Best Buy, you have from Target, you have from Sears. So you buy the Sears card, you use it in Sears. Yeah, so in-store cards. That's a closed loop. It's like, I mean, sort of.
Because yesterday there was a question on this. This was store card.
Yeah,
So like store card means prepaid card.
prepaid card, stored value card. That's right.
But the ML risk associated with these products is very limited though.
Yeah, this is limited because normally the limits are not high, and it is only attached to that store itself. So you cannot.
And besides that, even the ML risk associated with these
Yeah.
products is very limited.
Yeah, it's not also appealing to criminals much. Yeah.
Because what can you buy from Best Buy? Electronics?
Yeah.
Yeah. Target, what are you gonna do? Like,
Exactly. Unless you will buy it and sell it, that's something else. But I mean, how much is the limit? But this one is really the one. The open loop is that I buy the card, I load the card, I can use anywhere. Anywhere, that means I can use it globally. I can travel, I can use it. Yeah. So that's a more risky one.
So now the GoCash which UAE exchange is issuing is related to open loop.
Open loop, of course, yeah. Because you can use it anywhere. Yeah.
I'm not sure if you ever noticed this, but if you go to a Zoom in Delhi, in Dubai,
Hmm?
yeah, and you'd see these prepaid cards, the Visa prepaid cards that are there.
Yeah.
You can actually pick one of those up, load it up.
Yeah.
Of course, they have a particular limit assigned to them.
Yeah.
And they could be for 500 dirhams, they could be for 1,000, depending on the denomination you want it for.
That's right.
And they're available in different denominations. You can actually utilize those. I mean, even though they are small denominations, but
Yeah.
you know,
You can use.
somebody to create a bit of a havoc here, and especially if we talk from a terrace financing perspective.
Yeah, it definitely can be used. And even if you have a limit, you can buy more than one card. So you could diversify. Let's say each card has a 200,000 limit. If I bought 10 cards, I'm having a 2 million. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So we can always beat the limit by buying more than one card.
You couldn't provide your
ID.
I'll get a Muppet. I get somebody in the front. He should put his ID, and the main guy, he will not be in the picture. Like I would never appear in the picture as a criminal. So I could offer some guy, okay, buy in your name. I'm gonna give you a percentage, like let's say 10% of what you're going to load, as an appreciation for your effort. But he will be fronting. But definitely, I will not come into the picture. So if something happened, that poor guy, he will be paying the price, not me.
I tried one of the cards in the UK one.
Yeah.
If you put more than 200 pounds, you have to put your information on the card of your.
Yeah. Yeah, that's easy because, as I told you, I get some guy whom I will hire, and I will let him put his information. That's it. And somebody else will be using. Yeah?
So the open loop is the
More risky. That's right. Yeah, more risky. Insurance. Again, lots of things you can do with insurance to launder money. I'll buy the insurance policy, single premium. Single premium, that means, for example, I'll go for a life insurance company. I'll go for a life insurance policy, and I want to make a life insurance for, let's say, 10 million. And that will be, for example, for the next 35 years, let's say. 35 years, I want to get, it's a 10 million, so they will do the calculation. They will tell you, for example, monthly premium has to be that much. I'll tell them I want to do it a single premium. So that means you have to get the present value of all the future premiums, and I'll pay it today. And I will pay that by cash. So that could end up like, you're paying 5 million, for example. So I'll pay 5 million cash. I'll get the policy fully paid. Okay? I have lots of ways to use that policy for. Number one, couple of days, I'll go back to the same insurance company. I tell them, I didn't like it. I want to cancel.
They'll take a premium.
No problem. Take whatever charges.
But I think there is a grace period also.
No worries. I mean, I'm going to tell you lots of things, not an issue. Whatever control you put, I'm going to beat the control. You don't need to worry about that. So I'll come back to them and tell them, well, I didn't like it. They will cancel it, take their charges. Good for you. Give me the check, deposit it in the bank or transfer. The bank will see it as an insurance claim. Right? That's number one.